All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, however you consume Talking Buffalo. These shows, the numbers have been popping lately, definitely growing, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you for tuning in. Big shout out to both our sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just on the way from Highmark Stadium. Brand new outdoor patio. I am loving it there. Great food, great vibes. And of course, Imperial Pizza, 2 locations. One, Main Street, the newer one near Canisius College. The other one, the South Buffalo staple at 1035 Aber Road. And I'm actually going to be there live, depending on when you're consuming this podcast, either tonight or tomorrow night. Thursday night, 8 p.m., I'm going to be live with both Matt Perino and Matthew Fairburn. A nice little matchup there that I'm looking forward to having a conversation with them. If you happen to be in the area at South Buffalo, stop up, say hello to the guys. Half off drafts, too, if you want to have a beer. Literally every beer in the house is 50% off on Thursday nights. As for today, you might be watching us, if you are anyway, on the video side. I'm actually live. And I am joined by my good buddy right now, podcaster, broadcaster, good buddy Steve Bermel. What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
Hey, Pat. Thanks for having me. I get sandwiched between the Matts, right? Matt Warren yesterday and then Matt and Matt tomorrow. So you squeeze me in, and you got some really big shows this week and some exciting shows coming up. And I'm just grateful to be squeezed in and be a part of it, man. You always call me podcaster, and that's all thanks to you because this is the podcast outlet I've got. So, man, I'm just excited to be back with you and talk some Sabres today.
Well, I appreciate having you on, man. Like I said, we are live on the video side, kind of not really planned. I mean, I told you a couple hours or so beforehand we would be, but we're going to, and let me give a disclaimer for folks, because typically when I'm live, it's with Joe from Queens, and it's primarily football talk. Trust me, folks, the time is just about there for Buffalo Bills. There's going to be a lot of Bills talk coming up all over the place, and especially, of course, on this show. And we will have a little bit of Bills talk later on near the end. But I want to be respectful for all the regulars that check out the show, especially if you're watching it live. This is going to be a hockey-centric episode. So if you're not in with the Sabres and you want to bounce, come back, listen to the Bills stuff, trust me, I'm not going to be offended whatsoever. But Sabres have been, I'll tell you, dude, I don't know what it is. Maybe what people are hate listening, hate watching, hate consuming. They're just angry. I don't know, but Sabres episodes have been popping here on Talking Buffalo lately, and we're going to do a fun little exercise, Steve and I here, in just a few involving that team. For that, though, I do want to give a shout-out. So, like I said, Matt Perino, Matthew Fairburn, Imperial Pizza here Thursday, 8 p.m., and also this Saturday, I'm going to be live, part of MafiaCon. Tim Graham from The Athletic is going to be my special guest. We're going to be live on stage, so people who are there will be able to actually not just watch, but listen to the podcast. Sal Capaccio, Maniac from Trainwreck Sports, are MC in the event. 12:45 p.m., I'll be there. Player autographs, the whole rookie class. Ray Davis, Cole Bishop's going to be there. Food, vendors, all kinds of stuff going on. This is going to be really cool. And this is at Seneca 1, and that's Saturday. Got to give a shout out to you. And I were talking, Steve, off air before we started a show a couple days ago. I had Lance Lazowski on from the Buffalo News. And, of course, most people know by now, Lance, who's covered the Sabres for the last 7 years, is leaving the Sabres beat, and he's joined the Buffalo Bills beat. And I got to tip my cap to him. I haven't mentioned this on the show. I didn't get a chance to yesterday, but Lance was an awesome guest, and I have a lot of respect for him being very honest about the reasons why. He was candid in his explanation and telling everybody why he left the Sabres beat to go cover the Bills. And it's not the reason that a lot of casual fans would think because the team stinks and the Bills are good. They didn't really have anything to do with that. And I know you're a big fan of Lance as well.
Yeah, so Pat, when I was doing 716 Sports Podcast and Justin says to me the one time, "Oh, we're going to be, podcasting with Pat Moran," I didn't know of your show, but as soon as we connected with you, I started listening. And one of the things I appreciated most was the platform you gave to local broadcasters. Where'd you come from? How'd you end up in this role? What's the goals? What's the coolest stuff that you do? You get to knowing them a little bit more as a person. And it felt like another look into that, with Lance. And I followed his work because I love the Sabres and I track everything. He's got a voice that's recognizable when you're listening to a Sabres press conference when he was asking a question to Kevyn Adams or whomever.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he did a good job, being a writer for a team that's been struggling for so long, but engaging with people on social media. And I was surprised to see that he was joining the Bills beat, and I didn't know why. So having that platform, learning about his background and all his experiences in Pennsylvania and the college sports and the high school sports. And, before, when I was listening to your local media, personalities, I was hoping to become one. And now, albeit the lowest on the totem pole, it's cool that now I'm kind of one of those, albeit in a completely different realm. But I went from listening to your show, learning about some of these people whom I looked up to that I would hope to be my colleagues someday. And for me, it was just a great episode, and Lance was a great guest. But I felt like we hit the rewind button a little bit back to some of the shows you used to do when, I got to learn more about some of the people whose work that I would read or listen to all the time.
Yeah, and those are they remain to this day my favorite shows. A couple of weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to have the Bulldog and Owen Parker on. We did a show live from Sunny Reds, and maybe my favorite episode that I've ever done. Just great. It was some sports talk, but it's just talk. You know what I mean? That's how Lance was kind of one of those, and I used to love doing those. The problem was there's only so many people in the Buffalo media, and then, doing as many shows as we've done now here, at some point I've already talked to them all and covered their life and their career. So you have them back on again and again, and you kind of run out of things to talk about, and it ultimately turns into to sports talk. But in the case of Lance, again, very respectful of him and just his reasoning. And he was very candid. Talked about being burnt out from covering the beat. He talked about the travel was really getting to him. He talked about his father being sick, having cancer, and being in Ohio. Talked about his own health scare that he went to, and being 35 years old, and he just got married, and he's ready to start a family, and he doesn't want to travel as much. And so when the Bills, when the Buffalo News gave him an opportunity, Mark Gaughan retired to cover the Bills, he felt it was an easy decision. Selfishly for me, I wish he didn't, because, and I only say that because, and Rachel will do a fine job, and I'm sure 2-3 years from now, I'll be like, let's protect Rachel at all costs. But I trusted Lance, with the Sabres coverage. I really enjoyed reading him. And on a personal level, Lance isn't one of those, he's not the most socially outgoing, media type, like so many of these guys, like Sal Capaccio and Matt Perino and many others. They're very outgoing. They're always at events, and they're just great talkers. Lance is more of a, let's get down to business. I'm doing my job. I do it well. I appreciate, the accolades, but I really don't need to talk about myself much. That's how Lance is. So it was pretty cool to hear him talk at length about a lot of things on the show. So needless to say, if you have not listened to it, go back the other day, my interview with Lance Lazowski. It was really good. Let's get into actually one comment. A regular on the show, Steve Noble, asked if I was going to be able to be at Sunny Reds this Friday night. There's some kind of steak off. Unfortunately not. So I will not be there. If you get a chance, if you're in town early, though, come up to Imperial Pizza on Thursday and you can meet Matt and Matt. Anyway, let's get into some Sabres stuff. The schedule dropped here on Wednesday, and we're going to got some thoughts on that. And then we're going to play kind of like good cop, bad cop. So, Steve, one thing I think we can all agree on, everybody watching the show too, is that the Sabres offseason is dictated, and I'm not saying they didn't do anything. They made moves, but it's going to be, the success of the season is going to be predicated on hope. They're hoping that a lot of factors internally with this roster that they already had are going to come to fruition. And we're going to play good cop, bad cop. I am the negative one. I've been blasting this team now for months. Everybody knows that, so I'm going to be the bad cop. You are the internal optimist, and you're going to be the good cop. And I don't think either of us are wrong or either of us are right. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Like, maybe you believe in this team a little too much. Maybe I don't believe in this team enough. So hopefully we can meet a little bit here in the middle. And then we'll get to some Bills talk later on in the show too, like I said. Let's start with a piece of news. Oh, Bo Byram avoided arbitration. The Sabres signed him 2 years, I think 6 point something million. What are your thoughts on that move?
What a fair deal, right? I mean, if that goes to arbitration, who knows where they would have ended up? But that price seems low for what Byram is capable of. Because let's be real, on most teams, he's your top defender, especially offensively. Here, he kind of has to take a back seat to Dahlin. Excuse me, whether it's true or not, you have Craig Rivet saying that Bo Byram didn't want to leave. He wasn't looking for a trade. He didn't want out of Buffalo. He wanted to make something happen. And I would have thought that something happening would have been a lot more than $6.25 million a year. The other things that are working in the Sabres' favor is if they go to arbitration, he can't be traded within the first year. So the fact that they avoided that, this is potentially just Adams better maintaining his resources here, it's protecting his assets or having more options. I don't know if what Craig Rivet is saying is true with him not wanting a trade. But now if he does, because they've avoided arbitration, they could trade him, whether it's at the deadline or tomorrow or whatever. And you can't tell me that a team on the other side isn't looking at a 2-year, $6.25 million deal for Byram as a steal, because I think the only reason it wasn't higher is he didn't have big numbers here because he's behind Dahlin in power, especially on the power play. Whether you agree with the fact that he should be or not, I think he could play on power play 1 with Dahlin and let 3 forwards and 2 defensemen play on the first power play. But this is a bargain. I wanted Byram and 9 traded, maybe for a top 6 forward if there was a market for it. But this to me feels damn close to like the next best thing. If he plays 82 games this year next to Rasmus Dahlin on the top pair, I do think that makes the Sabres a better team this year than they were last year. Or what I said when I wanted them to flip him for maybe a forward asset, I don't know that that's going to happen. They have the cap space to do it. But if this term and this dollar value is attractive to trade partners, you might get a sweeter deal than you would have 3 days ago. And if that's what the plan is, which I have no clue, then maybe I get my wish of the other good scenario if they flip him for a forward. But if the worst case scenario now is he plays here for 2 years, $6 million a year next to Dahlin, I don't think that's too shabby.
I don't either. And I'll tell you, before I get to that, I'm on the live chat. Joe from Queens watching the show goes, holy shit, you aren't wearing a hoodie. I am known for wearing a hoodie like in the dead ass middle of summer. I always wear hoodies. They're so comfortable. But no, I'm rocking a t-shirt. Look, Byram specifically, I will put aside my negativity about the overall aspect of this team, and I still feel very negative towards them, not going to lie. But I do like how this played out with them for now. Everything you said, too. The contract's not bad. They could trade him while we're talking right now. And it could be an attractive part of a trade. So you have that component. And let's say they don't. And I'll tell you what, this might surprise you. But if they're not going to get a quality top 6 forward with Byram and other pieces, and I mean a quality surefire, sure thing top 6 forward, I wouldn't trade him. Mm-hmm. And it's got nothing to do with the future. It's like, well, he didn't get a 4-year deal, 5-year deal. He might not be here in 3 years. He could walk to free agency 2 years. You know what? I don't give a shit about
Correct.
2 years from now.
1,000%.
I care about right now, this season. This is the season. You're trying to win now. What happens with him in a few years? If they end up, they don't make the playoffs this year and don't make the playoffs next year, trade him at the deadline next year or whatever. But if you're not going to get great value, and as much as I bet on Kevyn Adams, and you'll hear plenty about that more coming up shortly here, I will say good on him to not trade Byram if he didn't get a good deal. And now that they, avoided arbitration, I feel the same way. I'm good with him being here. And if he plays if he only plays well with Dahlin, well, good. Guess what? He's going to play with Dahlin all the time. Sure. Okay. So point-wise, production-wise, yeah, he's not going to be on the power play 1. At least it doesn't seem that way. Who knows? But he's a good player, and he's a better player with Dahlin. I actually do like that move. Let's talk about the schedule. The schedule dropped on Wednesday. The season is opening at home October 9th against the Rangers. A couple quirks that I wrote down. 10, and this is like the Sabres got a good chance to get off to a good start. And it's also worth noting that, as bad as this team was last season, they did finish very strong at home. They were like 14-3 or something like that in their last 17 at home. And this is a team that's been really bad at home now for a handful of years, including a couple of years ago when they almost made the playoffs. It's probably the biggest reason why they didn't make the playoffs that year, where they only finished 2 points out. But anyway, 10 of their first 8 games are at home. 10 of their first 14 are at home. February, just 1 home game in the whole month. Only 6 games in total in February. And then in March, they got 10 home games in March, 5 on the road. So they played 15 times in March, 10 of those at home. If you're there for the Toronto series, it's a big deal. Home and home with them coming up in late October. I always like the Black Friday game. This year, it's New Jersey at 4 p.m. on Black Friday at home. And then right after Christmas, if you got family coming into town into Buffalo and you want to check out some Buffalo sports, you got the Sabres hosting Boston on the 27th of December. And then the next day, you got Philly, the Eagles, coming to Buffalo on Sunday. And then the annual Jack Eichel visit, which I don't know, Steve, for some reason, it's one of the first things I actually look for when the schedule comes out. But Jack's visit's coming on Tuesday, March 3rd. What are your thoughts on the schedule? Anything kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, the first game, I'm the sucker. We've talked about my eternal optimism. As soon as I saw the schedule drop, I looked to see if I could get some tickets because I'm an idiot. But no, I'll be there. I'm going to be at the opener for sure. My thought with the Rangers is, didn't they open up against the Rangers last year or 2 years ago and get absolutely shit pumped? Wasn't it like 6-1? Like, they got dominated, and the Rangers weren't even good that year. And then they returned the favor to New York like a month later. They beat them 5-1 or 6-1, the same score. But the start at home, it's so hard for me because you say they have 10 of 14 at home, and gosh, I hope that they start out strong, but we have seen that before. Do you remember the runs they were going on? Like when Jeff Skinner first got here, they would win like 10 in a row, and they were winning all these games in overtime against like LA and the Sharks. And so I'm so tentative. I know I'm supposed to be the good cop. I'm so tentative about the early schedule that if they do have success at home, if in those first 14 games where 10 are at home, they win 10, the entire city still is going to have bated breath on like if they're even going to make the playoffs, which is so unfortunate. And yeah, so for that, like, I hope they get off to a hot start, of course. Let's see what kind of the middle of the season looks like, because we'll talk about some of this, but like, what's the top line going to look like after 30 games? Like, because is Kulik a number 1 center? That's what he's projected to be. Is Josh Norris going to be so good that they moved him up? Like, we'll see. I am certainly optimistic, and I think a hot start would be good. I think you mentioned a Black Friday game, a game after Christmas. Like, hopefully they're in a spot where fans want to be there and they can fill the barn on those types of occasions where nobody's really at work and they're looking for something to do. I think you said that the Black Friday game was like 4 p.m. That's awesome. Yeah. If you get everybody there, you get some kids there. Hopefully they're at a spot where they can start winning their fans back. And someone on Twitter, I couldn't even tell you who it was, says the Sabres fan base is a sleeping giant because we as a fan base are so ready for them to show us, what they're going to do this year, that the moment they start to show us, it's going to be rabid again, I think. And hopefully some of these games you highlighted, the Eichel return, man, the home and home with Toronto, if that rink isn't 80% Leafs fans because the Sabres are playing well enough, that's going to be awesome.
I'll tell you this. Some teams in some sports, like say the Lakers in basketball, Florida Panthers now in hockey, it's a given. It's almost like their birthright. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're just playing to get healthy, not use guys too much. And, hell, man, you could put the Buffalo Bills in at this point. The Bills, what have we been talking about all offseason? Well, they got 2 guys suspended for 6 games. Well, who gives a shit? Joey Bosa's injured. His calf's going to ease him in. Who gives a shit? What matters? How they're playing in January. Yep. Because that they're going to make the playoffs. Obviously, with the Buffalo Sabres, this is a completely different story. And the start of the season, I think, is going to be absolutely critical because I think you're half right about the fans. The fans are dying to get happy. The fans are dying to be rabid again. The fans are dying to be vocal. The fans are dying to fill that arena and have something to cheer about. I'm with you there. I don't disagree. I would just be hating for the sake of hating if I disagreed with that. However, if that team gets off to a slow start, and let's just say, forget about a 13-game winless streak. That goes without saying. That ruined their season last year. They could never recover from that. If they couldn't stop the bleeding. They couldn't find a way to get more points during that losing streak, and that was a wrap. But if this team gets off to a slow start, considering the way this offseason has went, it's going to be unprecedentedly ugly when it comes to fans and how they feel about this team. And it's pretty ugly as a whole right now. There's plenty of fans left, all right? And there's plenty of optimism, spearheaded by you. But if this team does get off to a shit start, the floodgates are just going to open. So the fact, to me, when I look at the schedule and what's most important is the fact that 10 of their first 14 games are at home. You got to make a statement right away. You again, you're not the Cavs, you're not the Lakers, you're not the Bills. You don't have the luxury of not worrying about how the beginning of the season goes. You have to worry about it because not only you got your hockey team, but you got the people that are supporting you that are going to drop like flies if this team starts shitty. Is that fair? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah. If they come out and win their first 3 home games, they're going to start selling twice the number of tickets to the rest of them. That's what they have to do. They can win the fans back quickly. You would think it would take a long time, and I don't think the path to winning the fans back is a long path, especially with those 10 games at home. I remember after the lockout, there was no one going to the games the year that the Sabres should have won the cup. And my wife and I were going to games all the time. And then we went to the All-Star break. We went to get tickets to a game against the Atlanta Thrashers after the All-Star break. And they're like, it's sold out. I'm like, what do you mean it's sold out? There's been 5,000 people at these games. But I think very quickly they have an opportunity to fill that barn. I don't mean sell out. They might, but they have an opportunity. The problem is my fondest memories, I go to every home opener, not fondest, my most vivid memories are them losing. They're losing the home openers. And like you spend the whole offseason hyped up, you spend the whole week ready to go to the game. It's a fresh slate. Everybody's 0-0 and they lose. And it's like, well, shit.
By the way, an almost automata love for not UPL, but the backup Lion, the new edition, in the live chat. Steve Noble says, Lion is a really great kid with an amazing attitude, smart as hell. He reminds me a lot of Ryan Fitzpatrick and will be accepted similarly. That's a good take. Here's an even better take. Epstein buddy, a prediction, I should say. Alex Lyon equals Tyrod Taylor, the drought breaker. That's a pretty bold prediction to make. But I'm going to tell you right now, Lindy Ruff in year 2 of his 2-year contract is going to ride the hot pads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if Lion plays better.
If Lion's going to break the drought, does that mean UPL's not playing 55, 60 games? That Lion is playing 50 or 45, or that he wins the starting job? We saw Reimer get hot down the stretch and play most of those games. You mentioned 14-3 at home to end the year. I don't know the splits, but how many of those games was Reimer playing? He got hot and definitely put him on a run. And I don't think UPL has done anything. I love UPL, but I don't think he's done anything to solidify himself as the bona fide number 1 starter. He's making a couple $1 million, but if Alex Lyon, he's still young enough too that he's playing for another contract. If he shows out, there's no reason that he can't take over the crease. I'm not rooting for it. It's just a reality.
On the video side, folks, we're going to be back, and I'm talking like literally 5 seconds. We're going to get into good cop, bad cop with the Sabres, and then we'll hit some Bills talk too. Quite literally. We'll be right back. All right, back here with Steve Bermel. We don't need to hear the sirens going off again. Steve Bermel live on the video side. This is our Thursday episode. We're talking Sabres right now, and let's get into this. Good cop, bad cop, okay? I'm going to give you a bunch of kind of what-if scenarios because I feel like the Sabres offseason, which we don't need to rehash again, pretty much everybody knows it. They traded away J.J. Peterka. I kind of feel on a lot of levels, Kevyn Adams, his hand was forced with that. J.J. Peterka did not want to be here. Although a lot of people pushing back on that are starting to say that, and even Lance was talking about it, that, at some point you can't give in to the players. And, like, tough shit. You're here, you're under contract. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. J.J. Peterka's gone. So you got a solid top six forward out. You got a top four defenseman in Kesselring, a bottom six forward in Doan. We talked about Lyon, a backup goalie. Got a fourth line player. Pretty much that's the extent of the offseason in terms of new blood in this organization. As a result, it's pretty damn obvious that the Sabres' strategy right now is hope. And by hope, I mean internally, players inside that are already on this team are going to step up in a variety of different ways. We're going to play good cop, bad cop. I'm going to be the negative guy here. You're going to be the good cop because I know you like being the good cop. And I like being the bad cop. And I'm good with that too. So we're both good with our roles here. I will say one thing, though. I don't necessarily think, even if I'm making a case against it, I don't necessarily think that every factor we put out here that I don't think none of it's going to work out. Some of this, I will say, I do think works out. But let's get into some factors, Steve. These are things that the Sabres need to have happen for them, on top of potentially some other stuff too, to break a 14-year drought and get into the playoffs. And I want to start with, you mentioned him briefly earlier, Josh Norris. Okay, he is a talented player, a big contract. The Sabres traded Dylan Cousins for him. The other stuff literally doesn't matter anymore. It was Norris for Cousins. As far as I'm concerned, he is being counted on, especially now being counted on, to be a first or second line center. He's a top six forward. The problem with Josh Norris, well, we all know what the problem is. Last 4 seasons, he's played 56, 58, in 66 games. Last year, soft tissue, oblique injury, missed, I think, like the last 18 games, and he's got a history of shoulder issues. So let's start there. Injury history, and the Sabres are counting on him to not have injuries this season, and that's pretty obvious going by the lack of getting another top six forward, at least for now anyway. It's center. They need Josh Norris to be healthy, dude, and as a bad cop, I'm like, you can't bet on that.
Remember when Cousins first went to Ottawa and he was like lighting it up and everyone's like, look, everyone leaves Buffalo and they play really well. And then what happened? He looked like the Dylan Cousins of Buffalo, in the playoffs and towards the end of the regular season. He kind of regressed a little bit. And I have a question I want you to answer. Who got the better player in the trade?
I don't know.
Because you're right. It is Norris for Cousins now. And good cop. The Sabres got the better player. In those seasons, I know that he has only, so many games played. That season, when he had 66 games played, he scored 35 goals. And I know he hasn't scored at that clip since, but the Sabres have been hard-pressed to find 30-goal scorers not named Jeff Skinner and Tage Thompson. And this guy scored 35 goals in 66 games. That was the most games he played in the last 4 seasons. But it shows that the more he plays, the more potential, of course, he's going to have. But to pot 35 goals in 66 games is no joke. So hopefully, good cop being the optimist, he had the soft tissue injury. They shut him down at the end of the year. They didn't need him. They weren't making a playoff run. And this soft tissue oblique injury is going to be rested for how long come October. So hopefully he's back to being fully healthy. And if he's on pace to score 45 goals because he might play 80 games instead of 8 games, the potential is there. And I truly do believe that pound for pound, Josh Norris is a better player than Dylan Cousins. That pains me to say, because when the Sabres drafted Cousins, I wanted him to be my favorite player. Like, I want him to be that two-way, hard-nosed, gritty guy that can score 20 goals and like slam people into the boards. And then Garnet Hathaway broke his nose. I was at that game, and I just feel like he lost all that sandpaper that he had. But I do think Josh Norris is, 1, a better player than Dylan Cousins, and 2, absolutely able to center a top line or a second line, and the Sabres need that. We mentioned kind of Kulik being that top line center. My hope is that Norris takes that spot because Lindy can't keep him out of it, that he plays so well that you can't hold him off the top line, and, let Kulik play second or third line center. Maybe Kulik will be really good, but my hope is that Josh Norris is such a good player that he's centering Tage Thompson and whomever, Zach Benson, to be the top line center, because that would mean they won the trade. And if they're going to make a playoff run, you need top tier center play. And Josh Norris, like you said, has to be part of that equation.
Well, I'll give you this much. The reason why I hesitated when you asked me who's the better player is because I wanted to factor in. I do think Norris is the more talented player. I think, and maybe look, maybe Dylan Cousins, he's still young. He could turn it back up. All right. He was not the same player after that fight a couple years ago. I mean, that was obvious in Buffalo. Okay. Norris is the better talent. Let me give you, and now I'm pushing back as the bad cop here.
Do
Okay.
it.
One of the reasons why I like having you on this show is because you're not just Sabres guy, you're a Bills guy too. So you could probably understand my comparison here with this analogy. Josh Norris to me is Taylor Rapp to the Buffalo Bills. And allow me to explain. When he's out there, I think Taylor Rapp is a good safety. He's a difference maker. The end of the 2023 season, the 2023 season, that game against Miami at the end, he sealed that game. He's had some big plays. The interception in the playoffs against Lamar Jackson just this past year. He's kind of a big moment player. He's good. The problem is the old saying, the best ability is availability. What happens with Taylor Rapp? The dude just gets hurt too much, man. He does not play. You can't string too many games together with him before he goes down. And the last 2 years that the Bills have lost in the playoffs to the Kansas City Chiefs, who's not been on the field? Taylor Rapp, because he's gotten hurt. So talent-wise, like Taylor Rapp is significantly better than like Damar Hamlin, for an example, okay? But if you can't count on somebody to be out there, then the talent doesn't mean as much. And again, I'm playing bad cop here. I am not sitting here. I just want to be clear. So everyone just, Jesus, Pat's just hating for an hour. No, it's my job. I'm being the bad cop here today, which I kind of relish doing, to be honest. But what I'm saying is that I haven't seen evidence of the last 4 years. Everything you said about his skill set, I'm with you. He misses too many games. He got hurt too much. So that concerns me. And I put that one first because I think that he is probably, if not the most significant, one of the most significant what if, hope type strategy type of players. Let's get into another one who I think is going to be significant, and that's Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn, 15 goals last year. Horrible for the early part of the season. I mean, he was just bad. He looked lost, was not skating well. He was tripping over his own skates half the time out there. Coming back from an injury, now I'm trying to be fair here and setting this up for you. He was not as far removed. He definitely picked it up in the second half of the season, which again, if I'll put my bad cop hat on, I'm going to in a minute with him. Anyway, 15 goals last year. He's never scored more than that. He was also a minus 18 last year, although a lot of people would say plus minus is a very overrated stat. But anyway, the Sabres are sure as hell hoping at the very least he's a solid top 9 guy. My thought is, I remember conversations, you and I were talking a little bit about it, my conversations with Chad and Chris Ostrander, some others, when people were going over offseason projections and rosters way before any moves were made. Jack Quinn was trade bait for everybody, or Jack Quinn, just people were literally forgetting about him on what they thought this organization would be. Yet here we are. Jack Quinn is very, very, very likely to have an integral part of this team. So the bad cop in me says, I don't like that.
So I get to ask you questions right back? Because
absolutely, you can ask, sure.
So they bridge Jack Quinn, 2 years, $5 million a year, something like that. I think it's good asset management. How many goals does he need to score to be worth that contract? 20? Because he scored 15, but didn't like a dozen of them come in the last 20 games? Like all of a sudden, like you said, he turned it on. And okay, good cop time. If he scores 30 goals this year, we're going to be having a completely different conversation at the end of the year. Holy shit, they're paying this guy $5 million. And he
not
scored,
even. They're not even paying
26 goals. We would sign up for that all day, every day to have a scoring winger. And I think you would agree with this, that he has the potential to score 30 goals in this league, and maybe easily, because if you stretch out the scoring pace he was on to end the season, he was on like a 40-goal pace. Now, I know you can't play shoulda, woulda, coulda, but this guy can score 10 goals in a month and not even bat an eye. So the deal, once again, in my opinion, this is fair asset management. They do have to pay certain free agents to come here, but they're paying Byram and Quinn kind of fair deals to bridge them for a couple of years to say, you know what, we're still not proven. Like Bowen Byram, if he signed for 8 years, $8 million a year, do you think anybody would have been surprised? No, because he's worth that. And the Sabres bridge him for a little bit. Jack Quinn hasn't proven maybe that he's even worth what he's getting paid right now, but I don't think anybody with a clear conscience could say that the potential isn't there for him to make $6 to $7 million a year. If you score 25 goals a year in this league, you are a $6 million player, point blank and period, in the NHL. And yeah, he only scored 15 last year, but it was a torrid pace for a while there. He went nuts. And I saw another comment that he was still coming back from injury. If he's healthy and scores 25 to 30 goals this year, his contract for the following year is a bargain. He is a second line winger. Maybe he pots some power play goals for you as well. And that's the missing piece they didn't have last year. They didn't have, now that they lost Peterka especially, could Quinn play that offside on the power play? Maybe he's got the shot to do it. So if he starts to pan out, even close to what his potential is, this deal's a bargain, and it was good asset management by Kevyn to not trade him for a bag of pucks. Instead, bridge him for a few dollars. And if it works out, great, you're extending him to stay here. And similar to what you said for Bowen Byram, if it's not working out, they don't make the playoffs, and they're at the deadline next year, you trade them and get what you can.
All right, good cop, bad cop scenario here. And by the way, his contract was even for less than what you thought. It was only like $3.7 million per year for the next 2 years. So good cop. Look, the opportunity to make that look like peanuts is certainly there. 25 goals, like you said. If he can score 25 goals this season, stay healthy, absolutely. That becomes an incredibly good bridge contract. You want to play the good cop to continue that? He was a lot better at the end of the year as he became further removed from 2 major injuries. So I'll give you that. Bad cop, back to the bad cop, I got 2 rebuttals here. Number one, I'm not putting a lot of stock into what guys did near the end of the year because they were playing teams that either were mailing it in or getting ready for the playoffs. The Sabres were just so far removed. Like, I don't care that Reamer played well last year near the end. Didn't mean anything. I still to this day wish they would not have won like 6 games in a row. At the end, it cost them a couple draft spots, and that's just how I feel, and it's just my personal opinion. So I don't want to put any stock into what he did at the end of the year, but I have to put some stock in it because of the injury, and then he was coming back, and he definitely looked like a better player near the last couple months of the season. But here's the other thing. Hope. We hope Jack Quinn could be a 20 to 25 goal scorer. If he's going to be a second line guy, he better be. Yeah. Okay? And if he's going to be a third line guy, he better be, a 20 goal scorer. If he's going to be a top 6 guy, I need him to be a 20. He needs to replace JJ Peterka, basically. If it's going to be him, it's going to be him or Zucker, probably. One of those 2 guys are going to be on that top 6. And he needs to replicate what they lost with JJ Peterka, at least close to it. 24 to 28 goals, somewhere around that offensively. Again, going back to this hope thing, this is not a good hockey team. This is certainly not a great hockey team. This is a hockey team trying to play or break a drought, and you're relying on a guy who's never scored more than 15 goals to become a 25 to 28 goal scorer. And it just doesn't breed confidence for me.
I'm taking stock of how many times I've said hope or hopefully, and if you had $1 for every time I did, you'd be buying rounds at Imperial on Thursday.
All right, so Jack Quinn, again, they need him to step up, and similarly, because this guy very well might be in the top 6 as well, and that's Zach Benson. Mm-hmm. And I like Zach Benson. I want to be clear about that, okay? He's a rat player. He's kind of like that, got that Brad Marchand in him, you know what I mean? He's a rat, dude. Other teams hate to play against him, and he's going to get bigger and stronger and better, probably get a bigger reputation around the league, too, over the next few years. I like him. But offensively, 10 goals in 75 games, and there's a lot of talk. I'm seeing projections, and who gives a shit about projections in July. But there's a lot of, I see Kulik, Tage Thompson, and Benson as your first line. This guy scored 10 goals last year at the end of the day in 75 games, and I'm having difficulty seeing him become anything more than a 15 to 20 goal scorer tops. And just going in the year two, being so young, if he's going to be a top line guy, you want him to double his offensive production, basically what he did last year. It's a big ask, man.
Yeah. I wish he was 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier, because he's got the heart of a lion. That guy goes to the net more than people that are twice his size, and he'll just take a rough ride onto the crease. And my hope is, like, that 10 goals is surprising because of how much his nose is in the blue paint. Some of the best players in the NHL, Sidney Crosby's incredible. I feel like 30% of his goals, he's shoveling in rebounds in front of the net because he's not afraid to go there. And I'm hoping that Benson gets rewarded for getting his nose dirty and getting to the front of the net. This is a Lindy Ruff type player, right? He's playing like a Briere, a little guy with the feet always moving. And that guy drives the net. He's not afraid to be out front, looking for a tip, a rebound, deflection. And with Tage Thompson shooting the puck from the other wing, I'm good with Zach Benson trying to be there to clean up rebounds. He brings what a lot of this team needs and doesn't have. Unfortunately, to this point, he's 5'8" or whatever, and 120 pounds soaking
and what
wet.
19 years and old. 19.
Yeah, and that's the other side of it. He's so young. I mean, grows until he's 21 years old and has to come into his body more. But he has some things that you can't teach. Similar to like Peyton Krebs. Peyton Krebs has got cojones. He'll step up and start swinging on people, but he's small. And it's not that you have to be a big guy, but why are some of their biggest hearted guys some of the most physically small guys? It's frustrating because, like, I don't mind Greenway's play. I like how he plays most times, but if Greenway had the energy that Benson does to drive the net, I feel like he'd score 40 goals, for goodness sake. But I love the way Zach Benson plays. I love his moxie. I love him going in front of the net, and that's been so hard to find for anybody on the Sabres for so long. I'm glad they have somebody that's willing to do it. And like I said, if I could just have a magic wish, it would be that he would be a bigger, stronger, bigger kid. And maybe he's getting there, like you said, 19 years old and a lot of time left to come into his body. But I love the way he plays. I'm not sure he's a top line left winger, though. I won't disagree with you on that, but I hope he's a good one.
Wouldn't it be nice if the expectation for Zach Benson in year two would be to be a solid third line winger?
Yeah,
it would be
if the
really
pressure
nice
wasn't there to have him be rounding out a top six, because he has played up there before, kind of by necessity. So it's not even an indictment on him, right? Like it's not that he doesn't belong there because of the way he plays. It's that he has to play there because who's going to play top line left wing otherwise? Yeah.
Again, him and Quinn. It's just a lot of hope in right now, man. And hope, wasn't it Jason Zucker? So hope's not a good strategy. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing, but I know he had a comment about hope not being the best strategy for success right now. And that's what this team just straight up has. And the next guy on my list, okay, is Owen Power. And all right, so they make a trade. They trade Peterka, and the return is a guy, Kesselring, who feels like he's built to be with Power. And now that Byram is back in the fold, as long as he's not traded, we know that he's played his best with Dahlin. I mean, the top four is pretty much duh. We know what the top four is at this point. Owen Power has been a good to very good at times player, okay? Owen Power has not been great. He certainly has not been a number one overall pick caliber player to this point of his career. Now, in terms of that trade, I got to give my boy PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective some credit. We was on the show last week or so, and we were talking about the Peterka trade for Kesselring, and he said that the key is that if Kesselring can unlock Owen Power and make Owen Power go to a next level, you got to factor that into the trade itself. It's not just Kesselring that you're getting, it's that you're unlocking the best version of Owen Power as well. And that makes that JJ Peterka trade seem a hell of a lot better at that point. But to this point, and it's not his fault he was the number one overall pick. He can't control that. But he's got to start playing consistently like a stud defenseman. And the bad cop in me says he's not. And they're hoping that that's going to change.
I think that he's another victim of playing behind Rasmus Dahlin. What if he's not stuck behind Dahlin and can be the offensive power play one guy because he's a great puck mover. He's a great offensive, he's got touch. He can shoot. He can score. He likes to pinch down and kind of join the rush. And that's awesome. He has those abilities. The frustrating part is, as a number one overall pick, at what point does he not need someone to unlock him? He should be unlocking other players like Dahlin. And I'm not saying he won't get there, Pat. Young defensemen in the NHL have the hardest, goalies, it kind of everyone knows takes a while. Defensemen, we all know that they take 4 or 5 years to become the best versions of themselves, but we get all over them when they play 3 years and aren't, a great defender yet. Dahlin wasn't a great defender to start. Now he's incredible. He could play with me as his partner and make me look good because when I trip over myself on the blue line, he's just going to scoop the puck up and probably go score the other way. And he can drive a defensive pair because he's so talented. Does Power have that talent? We don't know yet. I am always disappointed when we're looking for someone to unlock Owen Power as a number one overall pick. I agree completely. I listened when PK talked about that. If Kesselring is the secret ingredient to make Owen Power the best part of himself, what a trade, because we need Owen Power to be the number 3 defenseman, the guy on the second pair, the guy that plays second power play, the guy that penalty kills. The other thing that I just was reminded of listening to another hockey podcast, there was a point in time last year, maybe at the beginning of the year or 2 years ago, that Power was like plus 18. And, we just said that we don't put a ton of stock into plus minus, and I don't. But I remember for a while, I think every player on the Buffalo Sabres was a minus except Owen Power. So maybe the talent is there, Pat. He just lost his touch or something. I don't know. Of course, I want Kesselring to partner with Power and make him the guy that we all want him to be. I guess my good cop for this, Pat, is I'm patient. He's 22 or 23. He came into the league at 20. Dahlin came in at 18. But NHL defensemen hit their prime at 26, 27 years old. Dahlin did it a little early, but he started earlier, right? He started when he was 18. So my hope, I keep, another dollar, we should ring a bell every time I say it, is as he gets another year in the league and he has someone next to him that gives him some confidence, he does play better and he's a more rounded out player. He's a great offensive player, but that's not what you need. That's not the only thing you need from a number 1 overall pick defenseman.
Let me say this, too, about Rasmus Dahlin, who's become one of the best defensive players in the league, one of the best players in the league. He is a legitimate superstar.
Yep.
It wasn't that long ago, though, and I remember this well because, man, I used to have Joe Yurden on the show every week, and for a couple years in a row, Rasmus Dahlin started out the season shitty, and then he would get better, and he would play well in stretches, and then he would play bad, and I remember Joe Yurden very well suggesting, maybe this dude needs to go see a sports psychologist or something because it was something in his mind or whatever. I remember Joe talking about that, and I'm not saying when Joe was right or wrong, but what I'm saying is it was just such spotty play early in the career for Rasmus, but now he's that finished, polished product. I'm not saying Owen Power can't get there. I'm not out on Owen Power, so we're clear about that. But aren't you a little concerned that it's you got to go making trades and you traded your best asset. You traded your best asset in terms of ammunition for trade that you had in Peterka, and the return was somebody primarily designed to play with your first overall pick, where it's you said this, he's playing with guy after guy, whereas Rasmus Dahlin, it feels like he could play with me or you or any of our listeners to the show, and that defensive pair is going to be okay because Rasmus Dahlin is out there. It's but Owen Power's got to have the perfect partner to unlock him. I'm not with that. And I agree about the being patient part. You want to be patient with them. But again, dude, if there's a sense of urgency in this organization, is patience really an ally right now?
If Kesselring locks down the defensive part of the ice, being on that pair with Power, and puts less pressure, Power doesn't need to be the guy in front of the net trying to box out. I know he's 6'6". Let's say Kesselring takes that role over, and that then allows Power to score, 20 goals and 70 points. That's a lot, I know. But if Power, is that okay? I'm asking a real question of you. Is it okay if Power never becomes a defensive stud, but then becomes almost a point a game guy because he's partnered with a defensive stud? I don't want that. Of course, I want Power to be the best two-way player in the NHL. Like, I want Power to be a great defenseman and a great point scorer. But if this happens and Kesselring's able to shut down, forwards on the other line, and that gives Power more freedom to get up the ice, to play a more offensive game, and as a result, he ends up with 20 more points. Are we still having this conversation next offseason?
No, I agree with you. You're right. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to be the number one overall pick in the league. He doesn't need to be one of the top 5 best defensive players in the NHL to be a good selection and to, quote unquote, unlock him. There's parts of his game that could stand to be improved, and hopefully with Kesselring, it will. Admittedly, as we're going through this list, Power is one of the things that I'm actually more confident in things working out for him. I want to be clear about that. Next guy, not so much. And look, with Owen Power and Quinn and Benson and Josh Norris, I kind of got some notes, like good, bad, or numbers and this and that. Next guy on my list, we got a couple left here, is Mattias Samuelsson. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is borderline rude, but I'm just going to say what it is. I got one word next to Mattias Samuelsson in my notes, and it says scrub. So there it is. There's my bad cop. I have no interest in this guy being on the team anymore. He lost me for good last year, and I thought it was offensive that Kevyn Adams felt insulted that they wouldn't even have a conversation about a buyout. No talk about him potentially being traded. He's here for a while. The bad cop in me says that. I've also seen early in his career some good play out of him, but he's another guy. He doesn't play big like he is. He's injury prone. I'm out on this guy. The other guys, I've been like, yeah, you could convince me, but you could put your good cop on or hat on if you want to, but I think you're going to have a tough time convincing me on Mattias Samuelsson.
You got me, because I was surprised they didn't buy him out, because we've talked about asset management a few times, and the buyout would have been minuscule. It would have been for a long term, but it was something like $700,000 a year against the cap, and they had the opportunity to get out from what seemed to be maybe not a great contract. So I was surprised they didn't buy him out. But now, got to play the good cop. What changes for Mattias Samuelsson if he's on the third pair playing 9 minutes a night instead of trying to be the guy next to Owen Power, who is a bit of a defensive liability, and now he's trying to cover for Power? Because there was a stretch where when he was in the lineup, the Sabres would win, and he wasn't in the lineup, they would lose. Remember, there was a stretch of like 15 games. They were 7-0 when he played and like 3-5 when he didn't or something. But maybe for him, it was pressure of trying to cover up for other things. And maybe now with him, it seems to be relegated, for lack of better terms, to a third pair where maybe he's playing no special teams. Maybe he's playing 8 to 11 minutes a night just as a third pair guy against bottom lines. You get last change, you put him out there against not the top threats, and he becomes a serviceable defenseman that maybe you don't have to worry about in the defensive zone. You can't fix Power and Samuelsson playing the way they do, though, and it's soft. Like you're right when you said I'd have a hard time convincing you on the bad cop here, because I would love just one of these guys to. I'm not saying to hit people, Pat. I'm not saying to fight. I'm saying box out. Power and Samuelsson both. When the puck is around the crease, either box out the body or find the puck and push the puck away. Instead, they do neither. There's no awareness around the crease. There's no nastiness. There's no physicality. And I don't mean punching someone in the face or elbowing them in the teeth or boarding them into the wall or tripping them or punching them. Just be physically present around the crease. And a couple people have said that they play soft. I don't know how you fix that. How do you make someone like Tyler Myers never learned that part of his game, did he? 6'9", and he never really learned that mean streak. So you're right. Samuelson's the hardest guy that I have convincing you, because my premise on him is I'm surprised they didn't buy him out, because I felt like they had an out clause with the minimal residuals that they would have paid for the buyout. But if I'm going to be the good cop, he'll be in a smaller role. He'll be on the third pair. Maybe he doesn't even play special teams, and then we're not as upset about it because he's not in situations where you're like, what the heck is this guy doing out there?
Well, while I do agree with that, and even if he's only out there 8 to 11 minutes a night, whereas if one of those 8 minutes is Josh Norris getting run into the boards after the play, and it hurts his shoulder again, I don't trust Samuelsson to do something about it. I just don't, man. And probably of all
He
the
had the
things.
front row seat to Tage, right? He was out there when Tage got dummied.
Yeah,
Samuelsson had the front row seat. Yeah,
and the fans have turned on him. It's kind of like, dude, wrestling. Okay, I always work a wrestling comparison into the show. When the fans turn on you, it doesn't matter if you want to be the good guy or you want to be the bad guy. Like Rocky Maivia, when he first started wrestling The Rock, before he became The Rock, he was a good guy. He was a baby face. And the fans said, this dude sucks, man. And they started chanting Rocky sucks. They turned on him. And once the fans turn on you, and the fans have turned on him, he is far and away the most unpopular player on this roster right now. I think he is universally by fans disliked. I don't know any Samuelsson fans. I don't know anyone who's saying, I'm glad he's still a Sabre. I'm glad they didn't trade him. I'm glad they didn't buy him out. I don't know one single fan. And if I'm wrong, tweet at me, folks. Let me know. But I don't know of any fan who is happy he's still on this team. And I think it would have sent a message. And again, of all the things that Kevyn Adams has said this offseason, some of them a little peculiar. The one that just straight up really annoyed me was his acting befuddled that it would even be suggested that Samuelsson would be a buyout candidate, and him saying that they never even had that conversation. How can I take you as a serious organization if you're not even having that conversation about this guy being bought out? I'm not even saying you got to buy him out. Have the conversation. I mean, what are we doing here? I want to move on past Samuelsson because there's always 2 or 3 things, Steve, that trigger me and
you're
and
fired up
setting
right
me
now.
off. I am fired up because Samuelsson is always one of those guys. Two more things I want to get to. UPL. Man, arguably he wasn't even the best goalie on his team last year. Okay, he had a 0.887 save percentage, and when you look at his career, been mixed bag, up and down. He had a really good season in 2023-24. He got a 5-year contract. That's been his only solid, consistent year of his career. They're going into the season with him as the 1A. The bad cop with me says, I don't like that. I know the good cop with you, this should be your easiest comeback because we've already talked about Lyon earlier in the show. Maybe UPL doesn't need to be that workhorse. Maybe he's not capable of being that workhorse. But if he's one of your 2 goalies on this roster, he's going to play. And I don't trust UPL at this point. So bad cop says, hope against hope that he's going to be what he was a couple of years ago, the only good year of his career.
Good cop says he's not being paid like a premier goalie, right? I think it's 5x5, right? He's something like that. Middle of the pack for what goalies get paid in a year. And I am okay with him not playing 60 games. Like if it works out that they split the net evenly, I'm not upset about that. They're not paying UPL $10 million a year or $9 million a year. They didn't crown him. Yeah, they got some length out of him, 5 years, but they didn't crown him their premier starting goalie. And this is where, honestly, when we talk about you're under contract, there's nothing you can do. If he loses the starting job to Lyon in the NHL right now, even premier starters, it feels like, only play 55 games. Like it's nothing like, even when Ryan Miller was here, there was a year that he played like 68 games or something, 70 games, and he was exhausted. I remember going into the All-Star break, you could see that he was physically slower than normal because he was beat, and he was outstanding, and he was a world-class goaltender. That doesn't seem to exist anymore. Even great goalies play, 60% of the games now. So even if UPL isn't the everyday starter, he's still probably going to see, let's say he loses the job to Lyon. If he loses the job to Lyon in the preseason outright, UPL probably is still going to play 35, 40 games this year. So as long as he plays well, which he needs to be better than 89% save percentage, if the reason that UPL is on the bench is because Lyon is spinning on his head, awesome. You're paying Lyon like $1.8 million a year for 2 years. So if Lyon plays well enough to steal the crease from UPL and you trade UPL or you keep him as a backup, great. You're paying an NHL caliber starting goaltender less than $2 million, and your 2 goalies combined are making 7.2 or whatever it is, 7.8. And a lot of teams have $8 or $9 million invested in just their starting goalie, just their number one. So they're okay with asset management in net, in my opinion. And I'm almost hoping Lyon wins the job, not because I don't like UPL, because if Lyon wins the job, that means he's probably going to play as well as we saw him play for stretches with Florida and with Detroit.
Mike Sturr in the live chat says, the Sabres are like a drug addiction. They are terrible for you and your mental, and you shouldn't like them, but you just get sucked in and want more and more and more and more and can't help it.
Mike, they could be 0-81, and I would watch the 82nd game.
I'm
in. I'm not.
You are.
There's nothing I can do to change it, my guy.
You've been very open about that, man. You've been very unapologetic about it, and that's kind of what I respect that when it comes to you. I don't, this is unrelated too, but like with Levi, common sense says he could stand to use another year in Rochester. That's not a bad thing. But again, when you're trying to make when you gave up Reinhardt and he was part of that deal, it's like, man, you really want to see this guy succeed, and you want to see that trade look better. But I just don't see a path. I like Lyon, and I'm not confident in UPL because I hate the fact that with your goalie, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, he had some games, dude, where he was the reason the Sabres lost some games last year. And your goalie shouldn't be the reason why you lose. Mike Harrington always has his make a save or whatever on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that holds true, though, man. Just make a damn save. And he doesn't often enough. Last one here. Not a player, a unit. And that's the power play. And it stinks. 24th last year. 28th the year before. I know they kind of improved later in the year, but bad cop. It's so important of a part of the game to be so bad at it. And of course, the Sabres have the same assistant coaching staff for like 4 years now. No changes with that. So I don't know what changed. Bad cop says we all know they need to improve on the power play. The good news is, what the hell have they done to do it?
Yeah, I don't know what the personnel is going to look like. That's a great question. I'm like, it's going to be, so my best guess, Dahlin, Zucker, Benson, Tuck, Thompson. Like, Zucker was showing a whole lot of prowess in front of the net. I loved him deflecting point shots and all that kind of stuff. Benson going to the net. Do they try Byram and Dahlin? Probably not. That just teams don't do that anymore. Like a lot of times on the second power play, they'll have two defensemen. So if the penalty expires, they have two defenders out there. But personnel wise, I don't know that the power play is going to be looking any different. So is the hope that Tage just claps bombs from the faceoff circle and scores 20 times for him on the power play? You lost Peterka on the other side for that other off-wing faceoff circle. Is that going to be Quinn? Is that going to be Zucker? I don't know. This is a great question because the power play, the Sabres, remember when their power play was like the best in the league? They still didn't make the playoffs, but there was a time when their power play was like automatic. When they got a penalty, when they got a power play, you're like, yeah, this is going in. They were, even when they were not a great team and they were low in the standings, their power play was like a layup. If you gave them a power play, you were going to pay. Now it feels the opposite. You give them a power play and you're hoping they don't give one up shorthanded. So I don't know, especially Lindy Ruff, if I know correctly, he's like a power play special teams. Like that's one of his strong suits. Like that's one of his coaching, the feathers in his cap is that he's a special teams guy. And maybe it's going to be just him changing some things up or taking over more of the power play responsibilities from the assistant. I don't have a whole lot of good cop to wear for this one because I don't know what the difference is going to be because maybe Josh Norris joins the power play one and that makes it look different personnel wise. And maybe the different personnel is going to make a difference. I'm grasping at straws here, Pat. I don't got much for you.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where you're fighting a good fight, man. But this is one you're probably not going to win. Unrelated, by the way. Sports Talk Buff in the live chat said Levi still has a ton of potential. Another year in the AHL is not bad. Look at Wolf and Calgary. It's a very good point. Back to the power play. Yeah, this is the thing. It's like you can't expect different results with the same thing. And you did lose Peterka. The coaching, the setup of the power play has not been good. The execution has not been good. The players, for the most part, have not been good on the power play. And you don't have any real pieces that are different other than maybe Norris. Here's at the end of the day, all right? And then I want to finish with just a couple of minutes of Bill's talk here. All the things that we went through. And again, my final kind of bad cop sentiment here. Josh Norris staying healthy. Jack Quinn increasing his scoring from 15 to 20 to 25 goals. Zach Benson being a much better offensive player, which is a lot of pressure because he's been good. He was good last year, but he's got to be better with the role he's going to have. Owen Power becoming what we think he can be. Samuelson being even just useful. UPL playing like he did 2 years ago. The power play improving. All these things could happen, but this is a team that has pretty much no margin for error whatsoever. And that's a lot. And there's some other things we didn't even get to, by the way, that we could have spent another 45 minutes talking about what ifs or whatever. But even just these, that isn't like Kulik. Is Kulik going to over full season? Is he going to be a legitimate top 6 guy? We got to see it. So all these things with no margin for error with this hockey team, dude, that's a lot to ask for. A lot of hope in the strategy with the offseason. The last thing I'll ask you is, now that the offseason, I don't want to say it's over because Byron could get traded tomorrow. There could be moves coming still. As things stand right now, and let's just say they don't make a major move, and for the most part, what you see is what you get. This is their team. What's your opinion on this, on the state of this team right now? And I guess their chances of ending this disaster that's just for the last 14 years, man. What do you think about what's happened with the Buffalo Sabres and where they're at right now, I guess is what I'm asking you.
So first and foremost, do you want to come to the opener? I'll buy your ticket.
Sure.
Don't lie to me. You don't
I probably won't want to go. Yes, yeah. I'm lying.
You're going to sit home. I'm going to sound like Joe right now. No, you want to sit at home on your couch. You don't want to go on a Thursday night to the arena, to the opener.
I don't.
But there's all this hope abounds, Pat. They're undefeated right now. They haven't lost a single game. I don't think they get in. I don't think that they do. I think, honestly, it's a lot to do with what's in front of them. It's a lot to do with the teams that they're trying to catch. Like, who are they going to catch? Maybe the Islanders, maybe the Rangers. The Rangers felt like an enigma last year. Like, they should have been way better than they were. And that's a team that Buffalo, could have and should have lapped last year. But it doesn't feel like the Rangers are going to be that bad of a team again. I don't know that there's 8 teams in the East, because the East is stacked, that this roster is going to be good enough to get in front of, one of them. So maybe they have another year where they only miss by a couple of points, or they put a much better performance together. And here's what I'll say, the last good cop thing, Pat. If fans show up to the rink and they're putting forth an honest effort, and they're playing hard, and they're skating hard, and they're fighting for loose pucks, and they're not giving up goals because they lose someone on the back door that they have no idea is there, but instead they lose on a deflection late 3-2 when they played a hell of a game, that's a whole different story. And maybe just for me, maybe for other people, they're just going to be mad because they still lose. But if they show up this year and the fans appreciate effort. How many times, Pat, in the last few years, would Gergensons have a shift where he threw like 3 body checks and the rink would go nuts because he'd go into the corner and bang a body, and then it go the other way, and I don't know, whoever was on the other wing goes and hits somebody, and it's like the fans are just appreciative of that kind of effort. And if they finish the year with 88 points or 90 points and miss the playoffs by 2 or something, that's a whole different ball game than a 13-game losing streak where it feels like they're out of it by Thanksgiving.
Okay. Very fair takes. I'll conclude by saying I'm going to steal the last take from you. I want to make sure I say this the right way, too, because I don't want to sound too pessimistic. I want to sound objective here and put emotion to the side. My biggest issue with the Sabres this offseason, and maybe it doesn't end up mattering, but they have operated, it feels like, without a sense of urgency this summer. You would think Kevyn Adams was in year 2 of a 6-year contract extension, and Lindy Ruff. It just doesn't feel like swinging for the fence happened. They had the 9th overall pick. They could have traded that. They got Oslin. They got Hellenius. They got prospects. They got other moves they could have made, and it just doesn't seem they were willing to do that. They're putting a lot of faith into what they already have, and to me, that's just not a sense of urgency. Now, I would say realistically, the ceiling for this team is they're going to be highly competitive. They're going to be in the mix. They're going to be an entertaining team to watch. We're going to get into the dead of winter, and by that I mean late January into February, and they're in the mix. Okay, maybe they're not a playoff team, but they're in the mix, and you're not dreading watching the games. That, to me, is the realistic ceiling, okay? I just don't think they're a playoff team. I could be wrong. I hope I am wrong. But that to
Me
me
too.
is the real, I know you do. That's my realistic ceiling. My realistic floor, and I'm not saying this for effect, dramatic effect. If they can't get Alex Tuck to a long-term extension, if they can't get him to sign a long-term extension, that is a enormous red flag because that is Mr. Sabre. And if Mr. Sabre doesn't want to be a part of this long-term, you got yourself a big-ass problem, okay? So that's one. And number two, if they fall off and some of these things that we talked about don't happen and Josh Norris gets hurt or whatever, a combination of things, and this is a team that come the dead of winter is in the bottom of the East or maybe third from the bottom from the East, going nowhere, and they're 10 points out of the playoffs. The rumors of Rasmus Dahlin being pissed off last year are going to be nothing compared to the outgoing comments, maybe perhaps from Rasmus Dahlin about his frustration with this team. And I'm not going to go as far as to say he's going to want to trade, but you're going to know from him, not from sources, that he is very frustrated and very, very unhappy. To me, that's the floor. You can't get Tuck to resign. It's a big red flag. And another bad, shitty season, and you might lose Dahlin, at least in terms of his spirit. You know what I mean? You might suck the joy right out of him with another shitty season. Does that sound reasonably fair?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't even add anything to that. You wanted the last take, you have it, and you nailed it. That's 100% right. I have no rebuttal to that. You're right.
Let's, before we get out of here, let's spend a couple minutes talking about the Bills. We're a handful of days now away from camp, less than a week. What are a few of your Bills thoughts right now as we're, again, just days away from training camp? Anything specifically about this team that's on your mind? Is there anything about camp you're looking forward to? Like, what are your thoughts right now, Buffalo Bills related?
Man, all of a sudden, I'm on the Dalton Kincaid hype train. So I remember us talking about like wishing he would have made a play. You were talking about it with, I think, Matt Warren too, that you would love to see him make that play against Kansas City. I'm seeing the tweets of all these tight ends who had, shitty second seasons, and the third year was their breakout year. So like I'm on the Dalton Kincaid 100 receptions, 10 touchdowns, 900-yard train. Like I am all in. If I was a betting man, I'm going to get every prop on Dalton Kincaid and hammer the overs and buy a vacation home in Cabo because I am on the Dalton Kincaid hype train. And I'm honestly, I listen to your shows all the time, not just because I'm a guest. Like I'm okay with the everybody eats, but if Dalton Kincaid emerges as the weapon that Josh uses, sign me up. Because how much fun is it? I know we hate him now, but like before we hated the Chiefs, Kelce was one of my wife's favorite players. Like how did you not love Travis Kelce chewing up yards and making these plays? George Kittle, like watching Receiver on Netflix and just watching him play week in and week out. How do you not love watching George Kittle? Tony Gonzalez, how did you not love that? Like there's been so many guys over the years that as tight ends are just fun to watch because they're always a little bigger than receivers, but they're athletic. So I am all on board the Dalton Kincaid train this year, and I am hoping that he shows out. Like I'm excited and ready for it to have him be like the number one target in this offense. I know we talked about Keon, and I have some expectations for him to be a good outside receiver because they need that. So that's the other thing. And then defensively, I want to see what this defensive line can do come week 7 when everybody's back. Are they going to be as deadly as I think they might be? They might have 7 guys that they could rotate into the defensive line that could get a sack on any play. And maybe they'll get a double-digit sack guy, but even if they don't, it feels like this pass rush this year could be nasty. And I'm real excited to see what that looks like come the middle of the season. So I know training camp hasn't even started yet, but as we're shifting gears and getting ready for Bill's season when the calendar turns to training camp, and it kind of feels like that's where we're at. Those are the things I'm getting hyped up on in July with 50 days till kickoff.
I'm with you on the Dalton Kincaid hype train. And I talked about this a little bit, and look, man, I'm starting to sound like a goddamn walking endorsement for Tyler Dunn and go long, but he wrote an outstanding piece this past week. I talked about it on the show yesterday or 2 days ago with Matt Warren. And dude has worked his ass off, man. He's owned He's owned the moment at Kansas City game. He stayed in Buffalo over the winter. Just him and his dog. He was at the facility literally every day. He is driven to be great. And he has a skill set that he could become a top 5 tight end in this league. I truly believe that. And look, man, I'll be I'm a lot of things, but being a Bills homer or any homer, I don't think people really call me that much. But when it comes to Dalton Kincaid, you can sign me up for being a Bills homer if that's what you want to call me. I love the dude. I think he's going to be poised for a big breakout year. So I'm with you there. Defensively, as we get into camp, and I'm going to be at camp, I know I'm going to be there for at least half the practices and hopefully more. I got some things in the works, so stay tuned for that. But 2 things. The secondary, the competition in the secondary camp is going to be enormous for varying reasons. Max Saracen is fighting to win a starting job. Trey White is fighting to win a starting job, and he also might be fighting to make this team.
Yeah.
If he doesn't start, there's no guarantee he makes this team. Dane Jackson is going to be in an uphill battle. What do the Bills do with Jordan Hancock? Is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a slot corner? Cam Lewis, he's going to be a dogfight to make this team. Damar Hamlin, if he doesn't start, Cole Bishop starts. If Derek Forrest looks better than Hamlin's not a mortal lock to make this team. There's a Codrington. Is he good enough at corner, that he can return kicks and have a spot in the defensive backfield? There's just a lot of competition. Christian Benford and Taylor Rapp, and Taylor Rapp can stay healthy, are the only two sure things in the Bills secondary right now. And then the other thing is the defensive line. And it really sucks about the suspensions with Hoyt and Ogunjobi. And part of that reason is it might change how the Bills break camp. Like if both those guys were playing week 1, maybe if a guy like Daquan Jones just doesn't look like he has it anymore, maybe the Bills would move on for him. Or maybe even a guy like A.J. Epinesa. If you got Michael Hoyt from week 1 and A.J. Epinesa doesn't have a strong camp and you're saying Javon Sullivan, who I'm very, very, very high on, by the way.
Yeah.
He outperforms him. Yeah, I'm very high on that.
I heard.
Yeah. So, yeah. But what I'm saying is, let somebody like A.J. Epinesa, maybe his spot on the team is not 100%. But with no Michael Hoyt week 1 or no Larry Ogunjobi week 1, I don't see Daquan Jones or A.J. Epinesa being like even potential surprise cuts. But camp's going to be fun, man. I'm very much, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long off season. But in a way, it also feels kind of still fresh that the Bills, I'm still mad that the Bills lost in Kansas City. And that was what, the end of January or whatever it was. So in some ways it hasn't been that long. But anyway, we'll see, man. You and I will have plenty to talk about. Not so much Sabres, though, because unless they do something different, buddy, what the hell are we going to talk? I think we covered everything we could cover with the Sabres until when or if there's a change, right? I mean, what else is there?
Yeah. They got to get to playing games soon enough for them, too. I mean, camp will be starting soon.
Yeah, it'll come soon. But anyway, like I said, on the football side, you and I will have plenty of stuff to talk about and plenty of other things as well. Appreciate you very much. Big thank you, by the way, on the live side. We're still up around 450 people. An unannounced Wednesday night live show on the video side. So thank you, everyone who's been in the live chat. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Again, Imperial Pizza Thursday night, 8 p.m. Matt Perino, Matt Fairburn. If you could swing it, stop by. Steve Bermel. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, guys, be back. Brand new show live, Imperial Pizza